Most people don't move to the wrong part of the Florida Gulf Coast by accident. They move there because they're looking for the wrong things. And the crazy part is, the places that feel best to you when you visit or vacation might not necessarily be the best places to live full time. I've seen this happen over and over again. People come down here, they fall in love with a place, then they buy a house, and they realize a few months later, this just doesn't feel right. And the fact is, folks, it's not the house. It's not even Florida. It's where you chose to live. So in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how people end up in the wrong area and how to make sure that doesn't happen to you. And if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna show you exactly how to choose the right area. Folks, my name is Brant, relocation specialist right here along the Florida Gulf Coast. And if you are seriously considering relocating to the Florida Gulf Coast, click the link in my first pinned comment, download my free relocation strategy guide that will connect us. And then I'll send you updates and emails on the Florida Gulf Coast, and you can ask me any questions that you may have. Now let's dive into reason number one that people choose the wrong area of Florida, and I like to call this the vacation trap. A lot of people come down here for a long weekend or maybe a week vacation. They fall in love with an area based on that vacation experience, and I get it. The weather's beautiful, the sand is white, the seafood is great. You fall in love with that place and you're like, I want to move here. But the fact is, folks, that is not real life. That is vacation mode. When you're on vacation, you are seeing a place through the best possible filter. You're not working your normal schedule. You're not trying to get across town at the wrong time. You're not dealing with things like grocery runs, school traffic, tourist season, parking issues, insurance bills, storm prep, or the wear and tear that comes with living on the coast full time. And folks, this is where people get themselves into trouble. They don't move to the area that actually fits their life. They move to the area that gave them the best vacation feeling. And the fact is, these aren't always one and the same. When you're visiting an area, you usually want energy. You want the beach right there. You want restaurants, people, activity, a fun atmosphere, walkability, maybe that postcard feel. However, when you actually live somewhere full time, your priorities tend to change. Now you start noticing different things. How long does it take to get in and out of here during busy times? How crowded does this place get when school is out or spring break hits or we're in peak tourist season? Are there vacation rentals around me? Is it quiet at night, or is there always turnover traffic from people going in and out of these vacation rentals? How hard is it to park near the beach or get a dinner reservation or just go on a simple trip to the grocery store when the area is packed? That's the part people miss. A place can feel incredible to visit, but not that great to live full time. I'm gonna give you one example right off the bat, Destin, Florida. It might give you an outstanding vacation, but having to deal with constant tourist chaos might get old quick. The fact is, some areas are amazing if your goal is to be right in the middle of the action, like Destin, Florida. But some areas are better if you want quieter, full-time lifestyle, easier access, less chaos, and just a little more breathing room. The fact is, people confuse those and they think that the area that they enjoyed the most on their week-long vacation is the area that they should buy a house. So before you choose an area down here, you need to separate the vacation version of the Florida Gulf Coast from the real life version. Because if you don't, you're not really choosing based on lifestyle, convenience, or long-term fit. You're choosing based on emotion. Emotion is how people end up in the wrong place. Let's talk about number two. And the second one, folks, is the map lie. And unfortunately, the map lie gets everyone at some point. Before people move down here, they pull up Google Maps. They zoom in on the Gulf Coast and they start looking at distances. They'll look at a map and say, oh, that's only 10 to 15 minutes from the beach. And on paper, that's true. Unfortunately, real life down here doesn't really operate like a map. The Gulf Coast is not built like a grid city where you've got multiple ways to get around everywhere. A lot of these areas are built around barrier islands, a few main roads, bridges that connect everything together, which means your entire day-to-day life can really depend on just a couple of different routes. And when those roads get backed up, everything shuts down. That 15 to 20 minute drive that you saw online in the wrong time of year or even the wrong time of day will easily turn into 40 minutes, 50 minutes, sometimes longer. And this is where people get caught because they didn't buy based on how the area actually functions. They bought based on distance on a screen. Think about your normal life for a second. You're not just driving to the beach once a day. You're going to the grocery store, dinner, maybe the gym, maybe a marina, maybe just to run normal errands. Now imagine on each one of those trips, you have to deal with this same traffic choke points over and over and over again. And here's something most people don't realize until after they move. It's not just about how long the drive is, it's about how predictable it is. There are areas down here where your drive time swing can change drastically based on things like the season, the day of the week, the time of day, weather, events, even accidents on a single road. So it's not just that your 20-minute drive turns into 50 minutes, it's that you don't know when that is going to happen necessarily. And that kind of unpredictability, it wears people down. Now, the big part of this comes down to how the Gulf Coast is laid out. You have water everywhere, bays, sounds, the Gulf itself, which means you can't just go around traffic like you can in a normal city. A lot of times you're funneled through one main highway, like a bridge, like a stretch of road that everybody has to use. So when it gets congested, there's no shortcut. Take the 3-mile bridge here in Pensacola, where I'm from. When that 3-mile bridge gets backed up, don't even think about crossing it going over to Gulf Breeze. Or if you're in Gulf Breeze trying to get back to Pensacola and that 3-mile bridge is backed up, hey, you're just gonna have to deal with it. And the fact is, folks, two homes that are the same distance from the beach can feel like two completely different places to live. One might feel easy, quick, and low stress, while the other one might feel like a consistent hassle just to get anywhere. And you never realize that from just looking at a map. You only realize it when you actually live here. So one of the biggest mistakes you can make is assuming proximity equals convenience. Because on the Gulf Coast, that is definitely not always true. So folks, when you combine that mistake with what we're about to talk about next, that's when people start making expensive decisions that they eventually regret. Number 3 is the cost trap. And this one doesn't usually show up until you've actually purchased the house and are living on the property. On the surface, everything looks simple. You find a home you like, you look at the price, you run the numbers, and you think, okay, this works. But what a lot of people don't realize about the Florida Gulf Coast is that the purchase price is only part of the equation. And two homes that look very similar online can actually have very different monthly realities. Let's start with insurance, because this is where things get real fast. Insurance down here is not a one-size-fits-all. It can vary based on elevation, flood zone, distance to water, age of the home, roof condition, construction type, even the street you're on. You can have two houses just a couple blocks apart, and one of them costs significantly more to insure than the other. And here's where people get trapped. They fall in love with the house first and only look at insurance after they're already emotionally committed. That's backwards. I tell all of my buyers, hey, let's get a quote up front. We need to know what we're looking at before we even send in an offer. Then you've got flood zones. Flood maps can change over time. An area that looks fine today can be reclassified later. And if that happens, there's going to be a lot more costs that go with it. So it's very important to also, when you purchase a house, get a quote for flood insurance. Even if you aren't required to purchase flood insurance at the time you buy the house, get a quote anyways, just to know what you're looking at in case those flood zones change down the road. Now, layer that on top of something else that people greatly underestimate here on the Florida Gulf Coast, which is maintenance. You've got salt air, humidity, storms, heavy sun exposure. All of that wears on a home faster than most people expect. That means roofs don't last as long. Exterior materials take more abuse. Docks, seawalls, and waterfront features require upkeep. Things just break down quicker than inland homes. And if a home hasn't been maintained properly, it can turn into a very expensive problem quickly. When we're in a market like we currently are, where buyers hold more power, it's very important to find a home that's been well maintained. And if you look at all these homes that are sitting on the market forever, these homes have not been very well maintained. If you are a home seller, it's important in this current market to do all the necessary upgrades, and little maintenance things around the home to make your home look presentable for a buyer. Because right now, with homes sitting on the market for such a long time, all right, if your listing does not stand out, then buyers are just going to overlook it. So folks, when people choose the wrong area, a lot of times it's not because they picked a bad location. It's because they truly didn't understand the cost of living in that specific area. They bought based on what they could afford to purchase, not what they could comfortably afford to own. And that's a big difference. And when you combine that with what we're about to talk about next, that's when people really start to feel like maybe we chose the wrong house. Let's talk about number 4, which is lifestyle mismatch. And this is where it really starts to hit home for people, because this is where it becomes personal. What I see all the time is people choosing a location that looks right, but doesn't actually match how they live day to day. And the problem is, when you're moving to a place like the Florida Gulf Coast, it's very easy to get distracted by how it looks. You see the water, the beach, you see houses, you start imagining what life could feel like. But what matters a lot more is what life actually looks like, because where you live only works if it works with your routine. Let me give you a few examples of what I mean, because this is where people get it wrong. If you're someone who plans to be on the water a lot, boating, fishing, just being out there, living 5 minutes from a good boat launch, marina, or easy water access feels completely different than living 30 minutes away. And people don't realize how much that matters until they're doing that drive over and over again. Same thing with the beach. A lot of people say, well, I don't mind being a little further, I'll just drive. But what actually happens is, the harder it is to access something, the less you're going to use it. So you end up living near the coast, but not getting to experience the coast the way that you thought you would. Another big mismatch I see is people not understanding the difference between living in a vacation area and living near one. Some areas are built around short-term rentals, tourism, and constant turnover. That means more people coming and going, more traffic, more noise, less consistency in your surroundings. And for some people, that's fine. But for others, especially if you're planning to live here full time, that can really wear on you over time. What feels fun for a week can actually become exhausting. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't sound exciting, but matters more than people think, which is daily convenience. Where are your groceries? Where do you go get basic things done? How easy is it to run normal errands without turning it into a whole trip? Because when you live somewhere full time, it's not about the highlight moments. It's about how easy and convenient everyday life feels. Another big one is, what stage of life are you in? Are you retired? If you're retired, your priorities are going to be completely different than someone who's working full time, raising a family, or splitting time between different locations. Some people want quiet mornings, easy access, low stress, consistency. Others want energy, activity, walkability, being right in the middle of everything. Neither is wrong, but they're both very different. And that's where the mismatch really shows up. People move down here expecting one thing, one particular lifestyle, and they end up getting a lifestyle that, quite frankly, they didn't sign up for. And I talk about location a lot because we're going to make sure you find the right house. That's actually the easiest part. Finding the right house that is not going to have a lot of problems is the easy part. Finding the location that you match with energetically, that is the most important part. So the best question I tell my buyers to ask is not what looks right, ask what feels right. All right, that's really important. Now let's talk about number 5, and number 5 is the wrong area reframe. There's no such thing as a bad area on the Florida Gulf Coast. In fact, there are a lot of great places down here. Different towns, different communities, different setups. However, there are areas that are wrong for certain people, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you guys. What I see all the time is people trying to find the best area, but the truth is there is no universal best. There is only what fits your lifestyle, fits your priorities, and what fits how you actually plan to live here. And that's where people get misled. They hear about certain areas over and over again, the most popular spots, the most talked about locations, and they assume that must be where I should be. But folks, popularity doesn't always equal lifestyle fit. Some of the most popular areas here along the Gulf Coast are actually some of the worst lifestyle fits to live full time, depending on what stage of life you're in. And hey, it's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because they are designed for a certain type of use. Some areas are built around tourism and short-term rentals, high activity, heavy seasonal traffic, while others are built around full-time living, a quieter pace, easier access, and consistency. So when people say don't live here, when you see these thumbnails with these red arrows pointing to an area, it actually doesn't mean don't live here. It means don't live in an area that's not designed for your style of life. So in reality, folks, we're not talking about good versus bad. We're talking about alignment. All right, alignment is the most important thing to consider when relocating here to the Florida Gulf Coast. Ask yourself questions. Does it match your daily routine? Does it make life easier or harder? Does it fit how often you'll actually use the water, the beach, the restaurants? Does it stay livable when the seasons change? Does it make sense financially long term? The wrong area usually isn't overly obvious at first. It reveals itself over time. So instead of asking yourself, where should I live here on the Florida Gulf Coast? Start asking yourself, what kind of lifestyle do I actually want when I move down here? When you start asking yourself questions like that, the right area for you will become blatantly obvious. And right now I'm going to give you a very simple way to figure that out. Let's talk about number 6. And number 6 is how to actually choose the right area for you. Step 1 on number 6, and I tell all my buyers this is really important: visit like you're living here. Don't necessarily visit like you're on vacation. It is very important to spend some time here like you're living real life. Most people come here for a week on vacation and they think, oh, I'm in love with the place. But if you haven't actually lived here like you're living real life, getting into some routines, it's going to be very hard for you to figure out the best place for you. Now, this means stuff like driving during normal hours, going to the grocery store, running errands, sitting in traffic. Try to do everyday things. Don't just go to the beaches and the restaurants. See what it actually feels like to function in these areas on a day-to-day basis. Step number 2 is test the routes, not just how close they are to the beach. Ask yourself, how long does this take me to get to the grocery store? How long to water access or a marina? How long to the restaurants? How does this change at different times of the day? The wrong area is never going to feel wrong if you're sitting in the house. Step number 3 is understand the coast before you fall emotionally in love with a home. This means insurance, flood zones, age of home, potential maintenance, because once you fall in love with a house, it's really easy to justify numbers that don't actually make sense. Step number 4, match the area to your actual lifestyle. Be honest about how you live on a day-to-day basis, not how you think you'll live, not the version you picture in your head. What is actually your day-to-day lifestyle? Next step is drive neighborhoods. This is really important. A lot of times people come down here and they want to see houses first. I actually think driving neighborhoods, getting a feel for location is more important, and I think you should do that prior to seeing houses. There's so much time that gets wasted going and viewing a house, and you get there and you're like, wait, hold on, I don't even like this area. I'm not even energetically aligned with the neighborhood. I don't even want to go inside the house. I've seen this happen so many times. It is very important that you drive neighborhoods and drive locations when you're down here on vacation in order to get more, to see which areas you align with. That is way more important than actually seeing the house. Seeing the house is the easy part. And if you do all those things that I just talked about, you will avoid 90% of the mistakes that I discussed in this video, or that I see people make, where they end up selling their home a year after they moved here and, you know, adios, I'm leaving Florida. I don't want you to leave Florida. Florida is an amazing place. I absolutely love living here. I've lived here for 41 years now. Would not live anywhere else. Could not see myself living anywhere else. I just want you to move to Florida the smart way, the right way. And I'm really passionate about taking our time and really helping people find the best location for them. Folks, if you are thinking about relocating to the state of Florida, all my information is linked in the description below. I'm a licensed real estate agent right here along the Florida Gulf Coast with Avenue Realty, and I'm a relocation specialist, so that's all I do. Again, you can also download my free relocation strategy guide, which is linked in the first pinned comment and in my description. Feel free to text me, call me, or email me if you have any questions. We'll catch you next time.